This episode is brought to you by Indie Film Hustle TV, the world's first streaming service dedicated to filmmakers, screenwriters, and content creators. Learn more at indiefilmhustle.tv. I'd like to welcome to the show Clarissa Jacobson. How you doing, Clarissa?
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be on your show because it's so freaking awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We were talking a little bit off air, and I appreciate all the kind words you said about the show, and that that you've been listening to it for a while, and you found me through distribution, where a lot of filmmakers end up finding me when they start running into that wall.
Creepy gray area that is no fun and nobody knows anything about, and we're all terrified.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, after you listen to me, you're even more scared because I tell you the truth. I'm like, no, you're never going to make money here. This is how they're going to screw you there. Don't sign this here. And
hey, all knowledge is power, even if it's scary.
I'd rather you be scared than lose your movie.
Exactly.
So, but I'm happy to have you on the show. And yeah, you reached out to me about your book that you wrote called I Made a Short Film, Now What the F Do I Do With It? A Guide to Film Festivals, Promotions, and Surviving the Ride. Based on the title alone, I said, well, I have to have her on the show. I mean, because I was like, this seems like the kind of gal that I can vibe with on the show, because it's no nonsense.
Yeah, that was my working title, and then I just never changed it. And it's super long. So now I just call it my WTF book.
Exactly.
Hashtag WTF.
So many filmmakers do make short films. I mean, I have a long history of making short films and having some success with them early on in my career. But there is so much misinformation about short films, what you do with them, can you monetize them, how do you run the festival circuit, where do you go with it, all this kind of stuff. So before we jump into the weeds, how did you get started in the business?
Well, when I was a little kid, I thought I wanted to be an actress. So I did the whole acting thing. I went to acting school. I went to Indiana University and majored in theater. And then I went to American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York City, and I did that whole thing. But I was always writing. And the thing about acting is you need so many people to do it. So I had all this pent up artistic energy all the time that I could never use, because if you're not in a play or you just can't use it. And I stumbled on, it's a long story how I met my mentor, Joe Bratcher, who teaches Twin Bridges Writing Salon. But he offered me a class, and I was like, well, I'm an actress. I don't write, I'm an actress. But I took and I took a few, but I was kind of getting that burned out stage where I was feeling like the bitter actress, But I was always trying to do my own projects. And then I started screenwriting with him, and I just never looked back. And I had that weird come to Jesus moment where I had to because I always want to commit to one thing and really be good at it. And I was freaked out going, oh my God, my whole life I've studied being an actress. I'm leaving that behind. I'm a failure at it. And my friend was like, life is like a tributary. You're just taking another, waterway. And that was 14, 15 years ago. And I don't miss acting at all. And I just love screenwriting so much. And then I made a short film for a variety of reasons, and that's when I really realized, holy shit, I'm a filmmaker. That's where I fit 100%. I fit as a filmmaker. I mean, screenwriting first and foremost, but I don't want to just give my screenplays over. I like to be part of the whole process. I just freaking love it. So, yeah. That's awesome.
And yeah, it a lot of times you walk into this business wanting to do one thing, and then you find yourself doing something else. And I walked in wanting to be a director, and that still was my goal, but I fell in love with editing because I was like, oh, I can make a living, and I can learn, and I can make connections. I'm like, this seems like a good job. And I get some carpal tunnel. I work in an air-conditioned room. I'm good to go. I don't have to be on set all day as a PA, because that stinks. When I first started out, I was like, 3 o'clock in the morning call. What the hell is this? Oh, I'm getting $75. Well, that's fantastic. And by the way, that was $75 back in 1995.
Whoa.
Not $75 today. $75. I mean,
that was some fun money, man.
That was some mad money back in the day. Yeah. But so all right, so let's discuss your book, How I Made Short Films. I made my short film now, and what the F do I do with it? We're going to go over a bunch of stuff, but one thing is a question that I always get people asking me about is branding. because I've done a decent job branding my show and branding myself over the years. How do you brand a short, in your opinion?
Well, with my situation, I just looked at the story and what little thing that I could pull from it that would be that people could latch onto, and that was my lunch. So my movie's a comedy horror about lunch ladies. So first thing I did is I was like, okay, where does my film take place? It takes place in a school. So when I made the website, I don't know where I learned this. I learned somewhere along the line that you always do the same type of fonts. You do the same. So I got started doing like, it was going to be the Century School Book font. It was going to look like a school. It was going to have the same attitude as the film. And when I talk to other filmmakers, short filmmakers about branding, I say, don't like freak out about it. Like, you don't have to be some marketing genius or whatever. You have to find like that thing that you can pull from it that other people will react to. So like for me, my lunch ladies are reprehensible. They're like really they're bullied all the time. So you feel for them, but they're reprehensible. So like I kind of went the opposite. I branded it in a way that like everything was, if they got in a festival, they cheated to get in. Everything was, so I just found that like little niche kind of thing that I could hang my hat on. And then when I would do all the Instagram posts, the Facebook posts, all the products, I find that a lot of people just throw stuff together. I took like a lot of time making sure that everything like fit together, matched with the fonts, looked good, and that it was consistent across all the social media. And even my blogs, like, I mean, I wrote like over 200 blogs during the course of it, but like if you look at my beginning blogs, you can see how it grows. So like I always say, you don't need to be at 100 when you start. You just start somewhere, and you brand it in a way that also it's information that you'd want to see. Like you have to like create a look for your film, whether it's comedy, horror, drama, or whatever. When you're creating content, that it's stuff that you want to look at, that you would want to look at. Because I see a lot of times people just want to like announce stuff. So,
so it's basically graphic design 101. It's basically you're thinking about everything you just said is graphic design 101, which most filmmakers don't think about, because they're like, oh, I'll just throw it up there. I'll just take a still and I'll grab whatever font that I find in Canva or in Photoshop, in my cracked version of Photoshop that I got somewhere on my old Mac, and they just slap it up there. And that's where I always find, I think that's really separates, projects, is the design of the branding, how it looks before anyone even sees the movie. Because more people will see the website. Definitely more people will see the trailer and the poster, and that will tell me, like, anytime I get sent pitches for being on the show, I'll look at the trailer, I'll look at the movie poster, and the second I look at it, I'm like, no, they obviously don't know what they're doing, purely on the scope of the design, because design is so powerful. Totally. Of a way to kind of introduce you to your world. And if you haven't done a good job with your poster, your website, your trailer, chances are I've never once seen an insanely well done short or insanely well done feature that the poster and the trailer sucked.
Right.
Like, it doesn't.
And I think it's too, like, you have to come from such a place of creativity, like, and that you have to think of the branding as just as creative as the film. And like, I fought it. I didn't want to do it. Don't want to do this. Don't want to do that. But you know what? Like, I just sucked it up. You got to just suck it up, and you have to find a way to make it joyful. So what I did was I found a way to make it joyful. So when I would send out my postcards, because it's about lunch ladies, I would wrap them in butcher wrap. Nice. I would send like the pins in like little wax paper bags with little stickers, like just what would amuse me, and try to make it fun. Because if you're not having fun and you're not being creative with it, it's not going to resonate. So like, come from that authenticity of like, what is fun, like what excites me about how to do it. And so that was kind of like always my thing. Like if I was creating something or sending something out, would I want to receive this? And, people would say, nobody cares. They're just going to rip through that paper. I'm like, yeah, but I know when the programmer opens that package, they have a little smile on their face, you know? Because
Right.
it put a smile on my face.
Right, exactly. And sorry, so the other question is this branding. This is where I think a lot of filmmakers make mistakes too. Is there a lot of times they'll brand their film for the mass audience, but you need to understand who your audience is. Is your audience the public, or is it film festival programmers, or is it studio execs, or is it financiers? Like, you've got to really understand your audience. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think so. And I also, and I just think there's like a big thing to be said for consistency and putting yourself out there. I mean, I have a whole chapter on this about the fear of putting yourself out there, because everybody, it's so much easier to shout someone else's work out than your own. And you're afraid that people are going to go, oh, that person is so egotistical because all they do is talk about their film. But you know what? Fuck them. Right? Like, you got to talk about what you love. And if you have that passion and that authenticity and you're putting it out there and spending time, like it takes time to like make your product look good, like to not just slap together, to, stay up a little later that night and like make sure you have the right stuff that you're sending out, like it takes time and that passion and putting it out there, like people will respond to it.
But that's called hustle. That's called work. And a lot of filmmakers, they feel that once they're done with the short, I'm good. I don't need to do anything else. And I don't want to do the non-fun stuff. But
that's why you got to make it fun. That's what I did. I made it as fun as I could.
Right. And
nobody thinks it's fun. They're all like, oh, you have a talent for it. I'm like, you know what? Everybody has a talent for it if you want to do it.
Right. I personally love the branding. I love the marketing of my projects and things like that, because I just think of it as just an extension of the creative process.
That's exactly the way to think of it.
I mean, you look at Fincher, and he's really David Fincher. He's really involved with his marketing. Stanley Kubrick was heavily involved with the marketing, from the trailers to the artwork to every aspect of the marketing process of his films, because he saw it as well, and so does Fincher that way. And I not that I'm putting myself in the same category as Fincher or Kubrick.
Right. You're absolutely right. You have to have that creative. Yeah. I mean, that's the best thing to think about it, is like, it's just an extension of the project, and I think too, you need to know what you want to do with your short. Like if you just want to go to film festivals and party your ass off and you don't care where your film goes, then you don't need to do all that stuff. But if you have a vision that you want it to be like a proof of concept, or you want people to notice you, then you have to find a way to connect the whole thing together and make it part of this. I mean, to me, it is part of the same thing. It's not as fun as making the film, but it's part of it.
And I think the big benefit that everyone has nowadays, and now I'm going to put on my old man hat, because back in the days, in the 90s, it was a lot more difficult to put something together online.
Oh God, I remember those days.
I mean, yeah, when you still had dial-up and like DSL. Okay, stop it.
You actually had to rent a camera to like do a little video.
No, there was no video. We were 10 years away from YouTube.
Right.
Okay, that's where I was. That's how old I am, everyone.
Like my acting things. I mean, I'm aging myself, but like my acting things, and you had to do like a thing, and I had to like hire somebody to bring a little camera.
Oh yeah.
It goes on a little tiny tape or whatever.
Yeah, mini DV tape, and they have to transfer it to a VHS.
Now you just it's just like ridiculous.
Exactly. So, but the point I'm making here is that when you now have the ability to make yourself look much larger and much more established than you might be. Because if you've got good design and you've got a solid website and you've got a solid trailer, agents, managers, financiers, festival programmers, they'll look at that and go, wait a minute, they must know what they're doing. Because that is honestly, good design and good branding will set you apart. There's so much bad.
Even just doing it.
So there's different levels. Not doing it, doing it badly, and doing it really well. And even doing it bad, they're like, well, at least they got a website. They must have done something right. But if you do it really well, and that's from my experience. I mean, I was with my first short film in 2005. I was I got into like I think 300-400 film festivals with that. It was a different time. It was a different world.
Awesome.
It was a different world back then. But a lot of times it was about the website we put together, which was a Flash. It was a Flash website, but it was so far beyond anything a short film should ever have, plus all the extra stuff I did for it and everything. So it looked so much bigger. I was getting called by like Oscar-winning producers. They're like, "What's going on here? Can we produce your?" Oh, that's a whole. I'll write another book about that whole story.
Yeah, you should.
One day about what happened, the journeys I went through with that project. But it was about the festival, the trailer, the branding, and I did it instinctively. I didn't know any better. I didn't go like I got a graphic design. I got to make. I did it instinctively, but
I it was the same. Mine was like such a desire. Like I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my film, and I was like, if this fails, it's going to fail not because I didn't do everything I could to make it succeed. Right. So if it fails, then I can go, okay, well, I did everything I could.
Right.
So it was such a desire to have it succeed that I just was like, I had to figure out how to make a website. I figured out like. I didn't know how to use Twitter. I was like, pound what? And they're like, no, it's hashtag. Like,
Pound.
I didn't have a Facebook page. I was not interested in Facebook. I was terrified to to talk about it a little bit, because I everything she's going to have an ego, but the passion to get it out there outweighed my fear. And then I became good at it. I became better and better at it, the more passionate I was about it.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of social media, do you think that you need to create a specific social media presence for each film, or do you create a brand around yourself as the filmmaker and promote all of your projects through those social channels?
Well, I think you could do it either way. Like I am a co-creator with my partner Shayna Weber, and we have Rebel Minx. But I still, we have like everything. We have our projects all there. But I still have a separate website for Lunch Ladies. We're doing a feature, and I have a separate thing. I mean, unless you're like Richard Linklater, right? Like everybody knows who you are. I think it's harder to like drive people to it than it would be just to send somebody your film and just go, hey, guess what? Go to my website, and they don't have, lunchladiesmovie.com, and they can just look at it there versus going to my Rebel Minx website, trying to find where it is, trying to find what it's about. And you can put a lot more information.
Well, yeah, so but not as much on the websites. I agree with you on the websites. I'm talking about social media. So,
you mean
do I have a Lunch Lady Twitter account which has maybe X amount of people on it, or do you go to Rebel Minx and have that as your main thing?
I prefer to have one for the films because that way you can gauge who's involved in the films versus, I think versus just it might just be they might be into one film and not others. So you can gauge how many people are into it. I think it's easier for. I don't know, like it feels like it feels very professional to have a film website. Like I haven't really looked at the big films out there, but I would bet that like let's say Warner Brothers puts out a film. I bet all those films have their own social media. It just feels more.
But they also have $200 million backing them.
Right. But it doesn't cost anything to open a Twitter account. It doesn't cost anything to open it.
I agree with you.
It's just work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Absolutely. I think it all depends too, is how long, what's the long game here? Because if it's just the one movie, because it takes so long to get one movie made, let alone trying to do like 2 or 3. So focusing all your energies at the beginning on individual projects, it would be great. But then you could also coincide that with a company site or branded site like Trauma. I'm thinking like Trauma Films. And if you're making the same
a different thing, because Trauma has, not a different thing, but Trauma has a very specific niche style.
Right.
So if you're a filmmaker, maybe who just does, so like I have a comedy horror, I have a historical horror, I have a feel good drama. My films are very different. So
it'd be hard.
Somebody who likes, people I think would like my stuff, like my voice, but they might not necessarily like my drama. They might only like my comedy horror. So then I just feel like I can groom people so much more just having, but like a Trauma, you're expecting a certain, all those films are kind of, they have the same vibe, you know?
I agree. So if you are a filmmaker who's going to be like, I'm going to be a horror filmmaker and that's all I'm going to do, that might be something to think about.
I can see you doing that way.
Yeah. Or if you're a comedy and all you do is comedy, there might be
Right.
something. But if you want to, move across, I got you.
Yeah.
Now, the big thing with short films is film festivals. Like, how do I get into film festivals? How do I submit to film festivals? It's a landmine. A landfield. Is it landfield? Minefield.
Yeah.
A minefield of all sorts of do's and do nots and secret. Like, you shouldn't do that, but no one's ever told me that before, and all this kind of stuff. So, what advice do you have for filmmakers submitting to film festivals today?
Well, first of all, and I think I read this in a book a while back, but I kind of perfected my way of doing it, is to have a list. But you have an Excel spreadsheet where it tells what the early bird is, so that way you can track. You can look at that spreadsheet every day and track to get your film in the early bird, so you can save money that way. And you can kind of organize it by what you want from your film. So, like, are you a person who wants to maybe be nominated for an Oscar? So, like, for example, I was like, fuck yeah, I want to be nominated for an Oscar. I'm gonna go for all the Oscar films for sure, right? So I'll put those all on my list. And then I'm gonna go for, I did a little research about, like great horror festivals. And so I knew I wanted to be a bunch of horror festivals. So I put those on my list. And then I started really getting into the idea pretty early on that I was going to get subtitles for everything, because even though that's a little bit up front, you put like $100 or whatever down for $200 for your subtitles. In the end, it saves you so much money, because so many festivals across the world are free to enter. And so once I got on the bandwagon of first of all, just getting your English subtitles is amazing, because once you get your English subtitles, a lot of film festivals will just take your film. Foreign festivals will take your film with the English subtitles and make subtitles for you. So I think that the first festival I got, and that was I submitted it with English subtitles, was to Morbido, and then they wanted Spanish subtitles. But then all the festivals after that I entered, they all made the subtitles for me, and it opened up this incredible world in Europe where all the festival. First of all, like, I went on other sites, because people always want to just go on Film Freeway. Well, there's Festhome, there's Short Film Depot, and you can find like the most amazing freaking festivals on there. But your film has got to have some subtitles. But by the time you're done, so what I would do is I'd go on those sites, and I'd look every week and see what the ones coming up were, and then I'd see, is that right for me? And if it's free to enter, a couple bucks, what do you have to lose? Nothing, if you got your subtitles. And then you're also having a long game if you have your subtitles, because then if you get picked up by a sales rep, or you do it yourself, then you can, which is harder to do it yourself to get your film distributed in Europe. But if you have a sales rep, then they can go and sell your film in France and Germany, because you already have the subtitles. So and the other thing is a lot of people would say to me, can I have your list? Because I want to know which ones to enter. And I would say, well, first of all, every film's different. So my film was an 18-minute film. So there was festivals I couldn't enter because it was
too long.
Mm-hmm. My film was a comedy horror. And the thing about doing your own list and going out there and researching and like looking at these festivals and looking at their websites is, pretty soon you start to get a real feel of what's out there, what your film might be right for. Now, you're always surprised by what your film gets in. Like, sometimes you think, oh, for sure that's a shoo-in, and other times you don't,
Mm-hmm.
But you do get a feel. You do get a feel, and I can't say enough, even though it's a lot of work to create a list, about what, first of all, the festivals that you think will fit your film, the festivals that are free, the festivals that maybe are Oscar, and you make that list, and you also put the early bird down, so you know that how much money you're spending, or how to weigh it. Once you've made that list, it's like you kind of feel. I really got like a real feel of what's out there. And what to submit to, and how to do it, and how to get stuff going. And so I think it's really important. Like, I give filmmakers all the time, I'm like, hey, I'll see their film, I'll be like, I bet this film would be great for this or this or this. Like, I'm happy to like tell people that, but I don't like when people say, can I have your list? Because I'm like, how is my list that's specific for my film going to help your film?
Right.
So you have to take that time. You have to take that time to create that list. And I was coming from ground zero too. Like, I had never been on the festival route. I didn't know. I mean, I knew Sundance. South by Southwest.
Yeah, the top five. Cannes, Toronto. Yeah.
And
Tribeca, right.
Just got to get out there and just kind of like, and then another way that I did it too is I decided that I wanted my lunch ladies to go all over the world. So I'd be like, oh God, I got to get in a festival in Venezuela. I haven't been in a festival in Venezuela, and which lunch ladies have not been in Venezuela yet, which is still trying.
But they didn't pay your way though, right? You paid your own way?
No, I didn't. I meant like my film, like I had this feel like I created a map of where they had been.
Oh, okay.
Because I loved the idea of them going to these places. Like in December, it's going to be in Bali.
Nice.
I mean, it's still going, so like there's something so amazing about having your film be seen all over the world. So that's another way to do it. Like, has your film been seen in Spain? And to not give up, because it can take a while to break into a country. And then once you break in, it's like the programmers all talk to each other and they get to, right. And they hear about you. And the Europeans especially, like, I feel like the programmers there really talk to each other and really share films, and really they'll play your film more than once. So, that's another way to do it too, is like geographically, or like which states have I not been into if you can't decide which ones to enter, So
the thing, I think one of the big problems that filmmakers have as well is they always focus on the top 5 or 10, the Sundances and the Slam Dances and these
right.
kind of festivals. And I always tell them, I'm like, the chances of you getting your film in are so astronomical. I mean, it was like 30,000 submissions to Sundance last year, and 110, including shorts,
right.
get in. So it's so astronomical to get into those kind of things, and they feel like they're failures when they don't get into the Big 10 or the Big 20 even.
Right.
And I always tell them it's not about you. It's not personal. It's not about your film.
Exactly.
You're not hitting what they are looking for that year. That year, they really might be into this kind of film with this kind of filmmaker attached to it. It's political. Mm-hmm. It has little to do with the quality of your film, to be honest with you, because I've seen a lot of good projects that don't get in. And then I see projects sometimes that, like, I never forgot this. And forgive me if there's a filmmaker who did this, but I couldn't. I was so angry. I was at Sundance. And I went to the shorts block, and I see it was called Batman Goes on a Date, or Robin Goes on a Date.
Okay.
And it's Justin Long as Robin and Sam Rockwell as Batman. And Robin and Justin is like, trying to go on a date, and then Batman's trying to basically move in on Robin's date. And that's the short film. And I'm sitting there going, if that was done with anybody other than Justin and Sam Rockwell, it would have never made the Sundance block. And I go, that just upset me, because I was like, I don't have access to Sam and Justin, right. Especially in 2005. So, that it just was like, but that's the way the game is played. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And sometimes you'll get, and then sometimes you'll get the Cinderella stories, and sometimes you'll get people who don't have names get into those festivals, of course, based on their quality and things like that. But that was just one example. It's like, oh, it's not really about my project.
I mean, I find that, like, you have to go for the big ones.
Sure.
Because it's fun. But also sometimes, like, there's ones that are, like, that open up so many freaking doors. I've had festivals that have opened up so many doors, that maybe because I've seen, I talk about this. So, like, my film did not get in Sundance. Okay. Mm-hmm. But
mine neither, by the way. So you're in good company.
But then my film got in Clermont-Ferrand, and that was the festival that I needed to get it going.
Sure.
But there's plenty of people. I mean, Clermont-Ferrand is the most amazing festival in the world, but there's plenty of people who don't know who Clermont-Ferrand is, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, I got, or I'd get in that one, or I'd get in some small, or I'd enter some small festival that I couldn't get in. Or I'd enter another festival that nobody had heard of, but that festival would open another door for something else. So, like, the idea is, like, to check out the festivals and make sure they have a real thing going, to know that they're legit, they're not a feel-good faker, and to really just be thankful when you get in them, and not, like, it was a total crazy thing when it got in that one, and I wasn't even in the competitive section. And it still was like the most amazing thing in the world. But like, I didn't get in South by Southwest. I didn't get in, a ton of, but there's always a festival that is for your film, and you just got to get out there and just submit, and realize, like when I actually did a whole chapter about that, about why your film doesn't get in festivals. Because it's a mind fuck. If you go down that path to start believing that your film is bad, you'll drop out. And I talk to people that'll be like, oh, I've entered 10 festivals and I only got in one, so I'm dropping out. And I'm like, the average is 10% of the festivals that you get in. So that means the average film gets in only 10% of the festivals.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to just get out there and you can't have like there's people that I know, oh, that's a small festival. Some of the smallest festivals have been the most amazing freaking
they're the best. They're the best
festivals ever.
I went to with my first film, I got into so many festivals, but I got into my first 35 festivals, turned down from all the major festivals because I had a 20-minute,
right,
action thriller, not the film festival darling,
Darling.
So I got into a lot of genre and all that stuff. But after 35 festivals, I had spent about $1,000 in submission fees. So I was just like, I didn't know anything about anything. I was just trying to.
You would think about the free festivals in Europe.
There was no free festivals in Europe. I didn't know about any of that stuff. And subtitling cost $10 a minute. So back then, so it was a whole other world. But then after a while, I said, well, I got into 35 festivals. No festival that I'm going to get into from this point on is going to explode my career. Is the way I thought about it. So I'm like,
right.
I just boycotted paying for festivals anymore. So I just said, I'm not going to pay for any more festivals. Now, what I did at that point is I didn't stop submitting. I submitted to everybody. And because my branding and my marketing was so on point with the trailer, that trailer was watched 20,000 times back in 2005. Wow. So it was a whole lot, I think it's one
amazing.
of the first trailers ever on YouTube. I'm so old. It was I looked it up. I looked it up the other day.
No, you're not.
I looked it up the other day and I was like, oh my God, am I the first movie trailer ever on YouTube? And I think Sony Classics had put one up a month earlier.
Oh my God, I love it.
So and it's still up there and it got like 20, 30,000 views back then.
I've seen it. It's a great trailer.
Yeah. So because of that, I was very confident. I was like, hey, look, I already got into these other festivals. So what I would do is I would submit to everybody. I mean, I did not discriminate. I submitted to everybody that could be submitted to. And then they would go back and like, oh, we like your film. I'm like, great. If I'm accepted, I'll be more than happy to pay your submission fee. But I'm not going to pay a submission fee for the mere chance of getting in, because at this point in the game, I'm not going to throw another $3,000-$4,000.
Right.
And it worked enough that I got into another couple hundred.
And it does
festivals.
I mean, the truth is like, if you get that role going, then people start to come to you.
Right. And it
takes a little bit, like it's building, Jerome Kershon calls it a pedigree. It's building that pedigree. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing when I was like, emailing every single day, someone to write about my film, no matter how small it was, like every single day, like just building these reviews, just creating this buzz for my film so that after about, I would say it took a while, but about 6 or 7 months, then I started having people come to me saying, can I see the film? You don't have to pay the submission fee. Can I see the film?
Yeah, it takes a minute. It takes a minute, but once you're able to build up that momentum at a certain point, and don't get me wrong, I got a lot of film festivals that was like, yeah, no, we need you to pay the submission. I'm like, that's fine. I'm not going to.
Yeah, and you hustle it in the beginning, and you always got to hustle through the whole thing. But it does. But when it starts snowballing and you start getting like people excited and hearing about it and stuff like that, then it becomes even more worth it, because you're getting some positive reinforcement.
And some of the best experiences I've ever had at festivals are always been the small ones, because it's a kind of a mom and pop. Like, everybody knows you, they treat you like family. Whereas in some larger festivals, who shall remain nameless.
Yeah, I think I could go over that with you. We can talk about that after.
Yeah, I mean, there's one specifically in LA.
I think I'm on board with that same one.
Yeah, and that specific one, in 2005, it's not Holly Shorts, by the way. I love Holly Shorts. But in 2005, I submitted and got accepted. and it was a very big one. It was an Oscar, whatever,
nice.
A qualifier and all this kind of stuff. I flew my ass across the country, put myself up in Hollywood. Can you imagine? I was in a hotel in Hollywood.
Oh, God, that's expensive. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. It's me and my friend. I never forgot it. Me and my producing partner, we got into this hotel room, and the beds were like...
You could roll over and shut the window?
No, the beds were so close to each other, it almost seemed comedic. Like you walk in, you're like...
planes, trains, and automobiles?
I'm like, is this a cleaning closet? And then like out front, when I walk into like, Marilyn Monroe stayed here once. I'm like, I'm sure she did, but Jesus, guys. So it cost us a couple, probably $1,000, $1,500, if not more, back to go over there. So we get to our screening. We're in a block with everybody else, and then at the end, no Q&A. No Q&A. Only thing I wanted, it was a Q&A. And I talked to the programmers there, and everyone's like, sorry, can't do it. We're running late. I'm like, dude. And oh, by the way, I wasn't even the worst. Another poor filmmaker in that block flew from Spain. And he didn't get his, and he only had the one screening.
Yeah,
and
there's nothing.
So like, and now off air, I'll tell you some other stories. But some of these smaller festivals, like there's a wonderful festival down in Florida called the Melbourne Independent Film Festival. I know those guys really well. They love filmmakers. They treated me like gold down there. And they're wonderful. There's so many great film festivals out there that will treat filmmakers well. So don't always look at the big boys. The big boys...
No, you do a nice little mix, and then now that they have Fest Home and Short Film Depot, you can enter the foreign festivals for like next to nothing, and I've had just met so many amazing people.
Yeah, so let's talk
many amazing people in the foreign festivals.
So let's talk a little bit about the experience of working a festival, because a lot of filmmakers just go there with their eyes full of shiny golden lights, and they're like, oh, look, the red carpet. Have no
expectations like I had when I went to Morita Fest.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be like, because all you think about is Sundance. So you think everything's going to be like, I'm going to walk the red carpet. There's going to be people taking pictures of me. Everyone's going to want to talk to me about my genius and about my artistic expression.
How amazing I am.
How amazing I am. And then eventually, obviously, Steven Spielberg or somebody is going to watch this. He's
going to notice me for sure.
Obviously, from going to that first festival. So when you get there, can we talk a little bit about how to actually work a festival, how to take advantage of what they have to offer and things like that? Because a lot of filmmakers just go there completely clueless about what this is and what the true opportunities are and what the true complete delusions are.
Yes, absolutely. So one thing is that you can do is you can always work a festival even if you're not there.
Oh,
so that means when you talk to the programmers so they know who you are. Like, don't be a pain in the ass, but talk to them and say, can I send postcards? Can I send a poster? And I mean, I've sent them to Europe as many times as I could because if you're not going to be there, at least your postcards will be there. And I will tell you, like, even if you're not there the first part of the week and you're coming the second part of the week, you want your postcards there on the table. I've had distributors that have gone to see the film because there was a postcard on the freaking table, even though I wasn't there. So that's the first way to work your festival is to make sure, and you have to ask because sometimes festivals don't want your swag and they don't want all that. But you got to try to have a presence. Then, I learned early on, don't have expectations about how you think it's going to go. So I have a funny story about Morbido Fest, which I love it so much. But when I went there, I missed my film both times. The first time I got in an Uber accident. First, I was in such a bad, it was like, that James Bond movie. I got stuck in a Day of the Dead parade and I was running and I was sobbing and I was like, mi película, which was the only Spanish words I knew. And I was running and I was like, I couldn't, the taxi cab driver dropped me off on the side of the freeway. I ran into this huge parade. I got to my film right when it was over and got to do the Q&A with mascara running down my face. So the second time.
I mean, it was a horror comedy, so that makes sense.
Yeah. With freaking freaking what is it, 2,000 miles to Mexico?
No, I know, to do this,
film, right? And then the second time, the film played twice. I was like, I'm gonna get there really early, so I got there really early. Like had a gin and tonic, like talked to people, and then I found out 2 minutes before that it was canceled.
Yeah, of course.
And then I got in a second Uber accident on the way home.
Of course.
So, like, you'd think this would be, like, the worst situation, right? Well, it wasn't. Because, first of all, I was telling you earlier, I had stood in line for the opening night, and I met my director there of my current film. So if I hadn't gone to Morbido Fest, I never would have met him. Right. I met the programmer, was just so wonderful. Like, I talked to him so many times. They've been so supportive. I wrote about them in my book. So you could look at that experience as, like, oh my God, that was the worst experience in the world, because you have this expectation that you're going to go to the Morbido Fest, which is this amazing festival in Mexico City. You're going to be like hobnobbing it. You're going to, and also I went to there was supposed to be a party, and I was there by myself. I didn't speak Spanish. So there was supposed to be a party. I go to the party, and the guy goes, no party here. No party here. So I went to a bar by myself, drank, margarita. And the next morning I saw on Instagram that they were all partying at the place where they told me there was no party. So it was that kind of like weak, but at the same time, like, that's when I was like, I'd already kind of I'd gone to a few festivals where it was like your expectation of what's new. You have no freaking idea what it's going to be. But like, if you can just open yourself up to it, something amazing always comes out of it. Even the worst festivals. I've been to horrible festivals where I meet just one person that's so freaking amazing, and they become like my best buddy, and they help me so much. So the first thing is try not to have expectations and know that something positive will always come out of it. And then you want to be as prepared as possible with all your stuff. So, like, there was many times when I was the only one there with a poster and an easel.
Oh, my God. A poster and an easel, postcards, all that stuff.
I mean, I know that sounds simple. It's a pain in the ass to bring it. But, yeah, if you have a poster and an easel, people will tend to go to see your film over other people's films.
Right, exactly. And it's just an interesting, the whole thing. I remember when I never forgot my first film festival I ever got into. Because I didn't know anything about premieres or if there was premieres or anything like that. So I submitted and got into the Ocean City Film Festival in New Jersey. It's amazing. Wait a minute, it gets better. I won Best Director. First festival, and I'm like, I'm like, this is gonna be easy. Like, obviously, everyone's seeing my genius situation. Like, everyone's seeing my genius right away. This is I should be directing a studio movie within a year. Exactly. And then I didn't get another award for like a year.
Yeah, that's hard too. Like, when you get you get rejected by, then you don't, because it comes in waves. I mean, I feel like it comes in waves. You'll get accepted to a bunch, and then it'll be like 8 or 9 rejections.
Oh yeah, it's
my film's never going to get in another festival.
No, it's crazy. But the best part was when I looked them up. And again, guys, this was 2005. When I looked it up on their website, which, if you could imagine what a 2005 website done by somebody who doesn't know what a website is, it's absolutely brilliant. My film was being played at like Billy Bob's Crab Shack. And that was where they were holding the festival. They were like basically just projecting it in the back of the bar. And and I think that went on for like 2 or 3. I think it went on for 2 or 3 years, and then it closed.
What a great story!
But I wish I would have gone. That would have been amazing. But but you just never know who you're gonna meet. My best story of working a festival is working Sundance, because I didn't get into Sundance, but I worked it.
Yep,
so in 2005, when my first film came out, my first short, Broken, came out, I flew to Sundance, even though we got rejected. And we were just going to like make sure everybody at Sundance knew about our film. And we literally walked Main Street in Park City with a portable DVD player.
Oh my gosh.
Showing people the trailer. And we had postcards all over the place, and people were like, where can I see this? And I would just send everybody to our website. And I got so much attention. We actually got more attention than most of the films.
Yeah, you had to put yourself out there. That's the other thing, like, even if you're afraid, and believe me, I was so happy to be like out there doing it. So like, I was, there is fear, like that, how am I going to talk to people? And it's like, you just got to talk to people. You don't just pitch people. You get to know people, and and sometimes it's even better if you don't have sometimes it's even better. It's funner if you have your team with you, but sometimes it's better even if you're by yourself because you meet more people that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was it that year that we did it. I think one year we actually wrote, we created our own passes. So we can get into parties. So we actually created like this ridiculous pass that would not fool anybody. But again, this is 2005, so Sundance was a little bit different. And it just said all access. That's all it said. It was just said all access. You have no idea.
But that takes so much chutzpah. Like, I love that. Oh my God, they probably like knew it was bullshit, but they were like, oh man, we got to let these guys in because of the chutzpah.
You have no idea how many places we got in. Too,
oh my God, that's wonderful.
Because we acted like we were in the festival, and we're like, oh yeah, and we would leave our postcards at like Sundance's like headquarters, and then like go back, and then they're like, who's this guy? And you see it all in the garbage can, so we pick him out of the garbage can, we put him like it was just straight up hustling, like hardcore stuff. But we met
hardcore hustling.
But we met producers, distributors that way. We had. It led to me they flew me up to Toronto when we were going to try to make the feature and all this kind of craziness, all because we went to a festival that we weren't accepted in.
Yeah. Now, and you work it, you talk to people, you like got to really, I mean,
parties. We were
parties. Like when I was at Monsterpalooza, I just walked up and down the line because I knew that people were there not to see films. And I just was like, here's a lunch lady's hairnet. Will you please show up at my show?
All right. So this. I'm going to tell this story. I don't know if I should tell this story, but I think.
Yes, please do. If it's embarrassing, tell it.
It's not embarrassing. It's actually it's a hack. It's one of the many hacks that we discovered at Sundance.
Give everybody the hacks, man.
Okay. All right. So
that was the first one.
But it does affect somebody else. So we knew. So because we were hustling so much, there was this one agent at CAA that we met there at some parties. And he was a prick, and he wasn't very nice, but we knew his name. So what we would do is we would go to a party up in the hills at one of these giant houses, and they're like, "Where's the list?" And like, "Hi, John Smith from CAA," and they're like, "Go right on in, Mr. Smith," and we would get there early before John would get there.
He deserved that, man. That was like poetic justice.
Because he treated us badly. So, and what we would do is, so I would get in, and then I would walk in, and I'd find an exit or somewhere, and I would let my buddy in on the side. So we're there. Like I never forgot it. We were at this giant house in the middle of up in the hills in Park City, and we're like partying next to like Paul Walker, Elijah Wood, Paris Hilton was there at the time. Like all
balls, man.
I mean, we were just like, this is awesome. Oh my God, I can't believe we're here. Like,
I love that you did that.
But I was younger. I was more foolish, and things. Times were different, guys. Times were different. Yeah. But don't do that to any agents that are cool guys, please. But it was a way. It was a, and one other trick that we did is we got to Sundance probably a day too early, while they were setting up, and we became friends with the door guys.
That's smart too.
So we walked in, we became friends, we befriended them, we bought them a couple drinks here and there. So when the parties were happening on Main Street, we just walk up and like, Bubba, and Bubba would let us right in.
Yep.
And we were able to get into parties that we had no business being in whatsoever. None whatsoever. Like people are like, who are these people? What the hell? How do these idiots? What's all access? What is that about? So, I should write a book just on my Sundance adventures. That's why I made my movie Ego and Desire, because I just love my.
Yeah, I just started watching it. I thought it was so funny at the beginning. The girl's all pissed off, like because she doesn't get all the credit.
Because that never happens. Never happens in filmmaking ever. Never. Egos in filmmaking. Never in a million years would that happen. So let me get.
And show up. The other thing too is to show up. Like
if you can, it doesn't cost you $1,000.
You go to the festivals. Like I mean, I saved a little nest egg, and I found out using Scott's flights, which is amazing, that you could go to Europe for pretty much the same price as you can go to New York City to see a festival. Because a lot of the foreign festivals will pay for your hotels, or they'll put for food or whatever. And I just can't tell you like how valuable it was just going and meeting people.
And especially if you're not in LA or New York or Austin or a hub where there's a lot of filmmakers, or Atlanta, you get to interact with your kind, your people. You meet other filmmakers, you meet other producers, you meet other writers, and the networking that you do at these festivals, even if it's a little hole in the wall festival,
it's important.
There's somebody there that you can meet. You have no idea who you can meet there, and sometimes there's a panelist who's on a panel somewhere, and you walk up afterwards, and you introduce yourself, and it's a weird thing at a festival. Like, you couldn't do that on the streets of LA. But at a festival, it's acceptable to a certain extent. Like, if they're at the bar, you can walk up to them and befriend them.
What do you do?
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Do you have any advice? All this stuff. By the way, if you do meet somebody at a festival that's like, a big writer, a big director, a big producer, don't just start asking them for things, please. Go up there and go, can I buy you a drink? What advice do you have for me? But don't go, hey, can you see my movie? Hey, hey, I got this script. Don't do that. Don't do that.
The other good way too is, I know this goes without saying, but this happened, and I talk about this in the book too. Another way to make sure that you work a festival is freaking support the other filmmakers, see their films. And when you go to a block and your film is played, don't get up after yours is done. Watch the rest of the films.
Right, because they'll see.
Who do that. And that, really, nothing is like worse will than going to a block and somebody gets up in the middle after their film is done and doesn't watch the rest of the filmmakers to support them.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, I've been in those. I've been in those as well, and
because I feel like filmmakers are your best.
The worst is when you get to when you're at a film festival and the only people in the audience are you and the crew. And and there's okay, we bought the 10 tickets. Okay, I see. There's some sort.
But every once in a while, there's a small audience, and
yeah, which is great.
And you're like, oh, bummer, it's a small audience. But I've learned to love small audiences too, because sometimes you could have a huge audience and not a single person who could do anything for you. You could have a small audience and there's somebody there that can help you in some way or wants to help you.
Right.
So just never look down on even a small audience. You just don't know who's in that audience.
I'm gonna tell one more story. When I was at the Toronto Film Festival in 2005 or 6, somebody, one of the producers who I was working with at the time, they're like, "Hey, we're distributing this film. Here's a ticket to go see this film." It was like an independent film. Right. And I'm like, cool. So I went and we sat there, and I was with my partner, my producing partner, and we look in the back, and they're like, "Is that Roger Ebert sitting
Shut up
in the corner of the theater?" And he goes, "I think it is." I'm like, let's go up and talk to him. This is before the movie starts. I'm like, let's go up and talk to Roger Ebert. So we walk up over to Roger Ebert, and Roger, we're like, "Oh my God, Roger, you're like the best. We're such big fans of yours, all this stuff." So we're talking to Roger Ebert, and all of a sudden, and then we start yapping about our film. Like, "Oh, we've got our movie, and we did it for $8,000, and it's got 100 visual effects shots in it, and we shot it with its digital camera, and it looks like film, and all this kind of stuff." And we're just spewing things off. There is nowhere in my mind that I believe that Roger Ebert will ever watch my film. That has not even crossed my mind at all. I'm just expressing.
Please tell me that he did.
I'm just expressing to Roger Ebert, who's an idol of mine, what I've done as a filmmaker. Right. And then in the middle of the conversation, I see something change in his eyes, and he kind of tilts his head, and he goes, "Can I take a picture of you guys?" And I said, "Sure, Roger Ebert, that would be awesome." Because he had his he carried around this is before iPhones, so he carried around his his camera with him. So we take a picture. He takes a picture of both of us, and the only ignorant thing in my mind is well, now I can ask him for a picture too, because he asked for one of ours, because I wasn't going to ask him for one until this happened, because I'm not that guy. I didn't want to be like, "Hey, get a picture." Yeah, but you took one of me, so now it's fair. I'm going to take a picture with you. And he's like, "Sure." So I got a picture with Roger, and then he's like, "This story would make a nice little story for my blog about up and coming technologies and all of this kind of all the up and coming technologies and filmmakers using this stuff. I'm like, great. Would you like to watch our movie? Bam! Here's a DVD. And we happen to have our DVD with us. And he's like, sure, I'll take it. So he took it. And we're like, great, you know, because originally, as we were talking, he's like, guys, I can't watch your film. It's not in the festival, and there's only so many hours in a day I have. And we're like, Roger, of course you're not going to watch our film. You're Roger Ebert. Why in God's green earth would you watch our little $8,000 short film from West Palm Beach, Florida? Like, that makes no sense to me.
That made him want to watch it, I'm sure.
So then he grabbed it, he took it, and we're like, okay, he'll never watch that. But that was really nice of him to do that. We got a picture with Roger Ebert. That's all we got. So we fly back to Florida. When we land, our email's blowing up because everyone's like, Roger Ebert reviewed your film on his blog and wrote a story about you guys.
You just hit the jackpot.
I'm like, what? And we went to his website, and oh my God, it's there. It's still there. It's still there. He wrote a long article about a bunch of films he watched, and in that article he also wrote about us, that he watched the film. He gave us 2 lines in the movie, effective and professional. What did he say? Oh God, I used to repeat it like on verbatim, but he's like, the mastery of horror imagery and techniques. I'm like, holy cow. Roger Ebert.
But he was vibing on your authenticity and your passion. So I had similar things happen like that. But it was a situation at Clermont-Ferrand where France 24, there's a million filmmakers, and they came up to me, and I got to have my little film on France 24. You know, when it was in the competitive section. But I said, why me? He goes, because you were so passionate and excited about your film. So that translates. Bringing that up. I'm sure that's why he probably was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to see these guys' film. But your passion and your authenticity about it and not pushing it, he was like, I got to see this.
And I will never forget that to the day I die, that a giant like Roger Ebert
That's insane.
Gave he sprinkled a little magic dust on us, and then
He's
from
still
that
the best critic there ever was.
Still the best film critic in history of film critics.
Yeah.
But he, because of that quote, and because of that attention, that was my lead with every festival. I'm like, Roger Ebert reviewed it. Roger Ebert reviewed it.
See, that's what I mean. Like when you never know like who's going to be there and what your in is going to be. I mean, I've talked about this before. Like I've been in festivals, with films that had gone to Sundance where the people in Sundance didn't their film. They did nothing with their film. They didn't promote it. They were just like, I was in Sundance, right? Their film didn't go anywhere. It was in Sundance and that was it.
Right.
So you don't have to get in it's what you do with your film, where and who the passion that you exude when you're there, and you meet Roger Ebert. It
was the most, and it was such it was like you were talking about earlier. It's like, how do these things happen? There was no reason for us to be there. There would have been
because your passion drew it in.
Everything just happened. Like I met this person
I'm like Dippy. Like I feel like you just drew that dude to you.
No. There was an energy there, no question. But then you're like, okay, here's a ticket to this screening of this obscure independent film from Australia. And then I just happened to go.
You showed up.
And I showed up, and oh my God, there's
like
Roger
the universe gave me the ticket, and a lot of people be like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna go have a drink with my buddy. Like I'm gonna go.
Never.
And that was the door that opened.
And that one moment, moment opened up so many doors, and I got called by, like I said, Oscar-winning producers.
Oh my God, yeah,
all this kind of stuff.
I mean, the most amazing stamp of approval for.
Yeah, it was for a short film that wasn't in the festival in 2005.
He doesn't.
He doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the only times I've ever heard him even
reviewing a short. And when I say review, I use that term very loosely. He watched it and gave me two sentences.
He talked about it and he said something about it, and you can use it, and it was positive.
Exactly.
He said something positive.
It was.
I mean, geez.
And he was so kind.
I could have said something negative.
But he was. The thing about him is he was kind when he didn't need to be kind. He was supportive when he didn't need to be supportive. And that is the hallmark of a great person in our business. Because, and I've heard similar stories about Steven Spielberg constantly throughout. I interview many of his collaborators. I've spoken to many people who've worked with him on the writing side, on the cinematography side, on the producing side, and I hear the same things about Steven, that he does things behind the scenes that you're just like, oh my God, he has no reason to be. There's no need for him to be.
You always hear good stuff about James Cameron.
James Cameron. Well, James Cameron. I love Jim. I mean, Jim is Jim. There's no other filmmaker like him.
I hear a lot of stuff, like good stuff behind the scenes about him.
I've heard
he does good stuff too.
He helps when he can help. I've heard there's also those legendary stories about his temper on set.
Ignore that.
But he's mellowed over the years, and I know a lot of people who've worked with Jim as well. I actually know one of his neighbors, and he told me stories. I was like, he has what? What does he do? That's amazing. But there's these giants who are kind when they don't need to be kind. You know, I got an autograph from George Lucas in middle of from when he was having lunch.
Is that a Stanley Kubrick autograph too?
Yeah, no, that's just his book. I wish that was a Stanley Kubrick autograph. But yeah, like he didn't have to be that nice. So there's these giants who are nice and that don't need to be nice, and that's such a refreshing thing. And Roger Ebert's story is one of those. But anyway, so
that's an incredible.
We could keep yapping about this for hours. Where can people buy your book?
So you can get it at my website. Hey, I'm Clarissa J. Or you can get it Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Sunbury Press published it, so you can get it there. Nice. If you get it from my website, I'll send you some lunch lady swag inside the book. If you get it from Amazon, you're probably going to get it cheaper. You can get it on a Kindle. So yeah.
Is it an audiobook yet or not yet?
No, it's not. I do voiceovers, so I thought about doing it
right now. When you stop talking to me, you're gonna start recording your audiobook, and we'll talk about it afterwards. I'm gonna ask you a few questions to ask all my guests. What advice would you have for a filmmaker trying to break into the business today?
The biggest thing for me always is to find a class and surround yourself with people that will hold you up and help you, and to keep learning. So,
what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film industry or in life?
That I am enough. Everybody talks a lot about filmmakers and artists having egos, but I always felt, and I know a lot of people feel this way, that I just wasn't. No matter how many classes I took, that I just, or no matter how much I did it, that I just wasn't enough. That I couldn't, And then when I just kind of set back into like, I'm enough, and they're either going to get me or not get me, things started to turn for me. Like when you can find that belief in yourself. And I have this crazy story, like when I'm in my 20s. So when I was an actress, I wanted to be on Mad TV, and this is a perfect example. I wanted to be on Mad TV, and I just bugged them for an audition. And I finally get to go to this audition, and you had to do 3 characters in an impersonation. So I decide that I'm going to dress up as my character, which was a bingo lady, Betty the Bingo Lady, and carry a suitcase with all my clothes and do my whole like little stand-up thing with them. So I show up to the audition, and I'm the only one dressed up. And all these girls are kind of talking. And I hear like the lady at the front desk doesn't know that I hear her, but I hear her go, Clarissa Jacobson's here. You should see her, right? And I felt so mortified and so embarrassed instead of just being in that place of like, fucking A, I'm awesome. I showed up. So I went and I did my audition. I did okay. I was off because I was upset about it. I didn't get on Mad TV. But years later, I read that Pee Wee Herman did the same thing for Saturday Night Live. And the difference between him and me was he was so completely in his own, like, fuck yeah, I'm showing up in my clothes, I'm going to do my thing. And he owned it. And I look back as like a younger artist about just not owning my ideas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It was so funny because I've actually, in my first feature, I worked with Deborah Wilson and Joe Michel Millian, both Mad TV alumni.
Oh, really?
Yes, and they tell me stories all the time about.
Oh my God, that's awesome!
The golden days of Mad TV and stuff.
But
like
I just
that.
was like, so many times if I had just owned, because I actually had a freaking good idea. I mean, it was good enough for Pee Wee Herman. those girls were just being haters. They were just being haters, you know?
And if you could just be authentic with who you are, that's what makes you stand out.
Yeah.
If you're authentic and you own your space, like Andy Kaufman, come on.
Oh, totally.
I mean, come on. I mean, like, you look at Andy Kaufman, he owned everything he did to a level that is beyond normal human capacity. Exactly. And he did it at such a level that they're just like, well, we don't understand what he's doing. Let him sit next to that record player and sing Mighty Mouse.
I just love him.
Like, it's you, like, oh my God. It's like, but that's the authenticity.
If you show up with a new idea, don't let the haters get you down.
Own it. Own it. And three of your favorite films of all time.
The Mexican film Santa Sangre. I don't know if you've seen that.
I vaguely sounds familiar.
Okay. A Girl Walks Home Alone.
Mm-hmm.
And 16 Candles.
Nice mix.
I just think John Hughes is a genius. Anybody can write teens like, even today, nobody writes teens like John Hughes.
Amen. But Clarissa, thank you so much for being on the show. It has been an absolute joy.
It was really fun.
It's been a joy talking to you, and I hope a whole bunch of filmmakers go out and read the book, because it is a guide to really helping you through these treacherous waters. And I appreciate you. So thank you again for being on the show.
Thanks so much, Alex. It was really fun.